Let's talk about the balloon boy. Remember the balloon boy? Like a parent said, the kid was. I think did they tell him that he was caught up in a balloon? I guess, but it was like fake. The kid was in the house the whole time. Anyway, not that kind of balloon, guys. Let's talk about this balloon story, and I want to talk about it in a way that I'm pretty sure no one else has talked about it, right? Because we know the way partisan media operates, right? Whether it's liberal media, conservative media, the blue MAGA squad, the fake progressives, conservative, like it's all about pushing a narrative rather than informing your audience, right? So if you're in conservative media, rather than being honest and reporting on what actually happened, your goal is, as it always is, to basically operate as the media department of the Republican Party, right? So, Republican Party wants anything that they can use to show, how dangerous the Democrats are on the left, and Biden is weak and he's a failure, right? So you're not going to dig in and try to understand and inform. You're going to report from a feelings perspective, right? And this is yet another example of the reason that I come to the conclusions that I come to is not I'm so smart or something like that, right? um it is because I come to my conclusions based on fact and evidence and logic rather than feelings, right? As Mr. Shapiro, Mr. Feelings guy, um I am a facts over feelings person. So my feelings would take me in a similar direction to the narrative that conservative media is pushing out, right? It felt to me, right, this is me personally, it felt to me a little bit, I don't know, like we're being violated, We have this foreign country and they're just flying this balloon, and then you're seeing the photos of it, and in the photos it looks like it's like a hot air balloon, right? It's not that far up, it's so close, it's almost like they're driving through the whole country, with a tank and taking pictures or whatever. You know what I mean? It seemed really, really sort of like we were being violated, right? That was my feeling, right? So again, coming to the conclusions that I come to is not really based on intelligence, right? I have the same feelings that would lead me in the same directions as other people go in and conclude in. That's the thing. It's one thing that to have initial reaction that based on your feelings, but then once you see the thing, you step back and try to understand and try to learn about what you're looking at, and then base your conclusions based on the facts and logic, right? You don't just have this sort of reactionary, like, oh my goodness, this feels bad, and then you just end it there, right? um so I actually did the research. Like, here's an example. I'm pretty sure almost no one in conservative media or anyone in their audience, people watching conservative media, have even fathomed the question of, first of all, how high was this balloon flying? Relevance of that being, what altitudes are you allowed to fly over another country? Right? The details, right? This is the way you come to sort of a logical conclusion. You look at the facts of the matter. Don't just stick with the feelings. It feels scary, but is it scary? Right? What's scary about it? Is this what I think it is? But these are questions that I entertained, and then I went out and I sought the information. Right? I don't need to be handheld. I don't, pick a medium that sort of panders to me and says a lot of things that I like, and I, turn them on. Oh, let them tell me what to think. Of course, people won't admit that, right? They'll go around spreading these ideas as if their own ideas, as if it's their own ideas, but really, they turn to their thought leaders, whether it's conservative media, progressive media, whatever it is, and these people say things that sound smart. Oh, this and that, and this is a country should never this, and the founding fathers, whatever it is, right? Black people, this and the racism, whatever it is, right? And statistically, 50% of and they sound so confident, like they know what they're talking about, and then all of these people in their tribes, just basically digest these ideas and then go out and repeat it. And then if you question them too hard, they get stuck because it's not their own ideas. They're just repeating the ideas of the media they consume. Right. So again, right-wing media, the perspective is Biden is weak. Look at it. Look how he just has this, and countries, they have no respect for us, and this would never happen under Trump, and blah 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 blah. Right. No interest in diving into whether any of that stuff is true. Why is China doing this? Have they done it before? All the little details. Ignore the details. Let's stick with feelings. This feels scary. This feels bad. Biden bad. Biden weak. What happens in progressive media? What happens in liberal media? The perspective is reactionary to the right. Right. Again, the right wing is sort of sending the conversation. They're all Biden weak, Biden weak. So now it's like, is progressive media leading by example? Like, let's focus on informing the audience. Now, certainly, I'm pretty sure, as is pretty common, you can learn more about what's happening in a situation by watching progressive or left-leaning media than you would from the right. Right-wing media, you're just going to get a lot of feelings type content. This is scary, and this is Biden's weak, and look at this, and Trump would never. It's all opinion and feelings-based stuff. You're not going to learn anything. You're not going to learn anything about flight level 600. Right? You're more likely to learn about that in liberal media than you would in right-wing media. They're not interested in facts and science and all. It's just feelings, reactionary, right? Has this happened before? You know what I mean? Is this an unusual thing to do in general? Like this thing about having a balloon. These are things that you will learn from left-wing and progressive media. Certainly, they are more interested in informing their audience than the right-wing media is, right? Right-wing media, again, primarily focused on just bashing Biden, bashing the left. That is their content, anti-liberal. But the left maybe, somewhat better than the right, but ultimately they still have the similar goal, which is, again, it's just reactionary and it's serving the tribe. So you have the other tribe saying that your tribe sucks, your tribe leader sucks, you guys are weak, whatever, right? So they need to go out there and push out a message of like, no, they're wrong, and Trump did it too, and it's just a balloon, and they have satellites that can give the same. Okay, so what is a more rational sort of approach to this in terms of like, I want to inform you guys, right? I don't want to push a narrative. I don't want to promote one side better than the other. I don't want to ride the fence and be in the middle, right? I want to go where truth and facts takes me. Okay. Do you know how high this balloon was flying? Again, a relevant thing if you're interested in facts and understanding what's really happening. Probably not going to hear a lot of this information on right-wing media. Wonder why. Right? You can take whatever opinion you want. You can still think Biden is weak, right? But to not get into the details, right? You can get into the details and conclude that Biden is weak. Or you can get into the details and don't think he's weak. But the point is, get into the details. Don't just focus your content on just, opinion and feelings. Oh, Biden's weak, right? Okay. The balloon was flying at an altitude of over 60,000 feet. Why is this relevant? And why did I even start in that direction? Because I spent the time to actually think about what's happening, not just listen to what I'm being told by either side and then absorb it, right? I said to myself, okay, this seems kind of scary and kind of like, oh my goodness, how is he allowing this to happen? But, we have spacecraft that fly over multiple countries without issue, right? I'm aware there is a concept of obviously airspace. We have controlled airspace. Controlled airspaces are designated by altitudes. Again, you never get any of this kind of stuff from right-wing media. Ask yourself why that is. Why is there no interest in diving into the facts? Again, you can look at the facts and conclude that Biden is weak still. It's not about your opinion. You can feel whatever you want to feel about Biden. But to not be interested in understanding what's happening, that's problematic. So, airspaces are designated by altitude ranges. from this altitude to that altitude is this class airspace, and so on and so forth. There's other types of controlled airspaces, I have over government facilities, military bases, but in particular, I want to focus on airspaces based on altitude. So, one of the highest classes of airspace we have, I believe, is Class A airspace. I don't know, I feel like I'm saying the wrong one, but this one is from 18,000 feet to flight level 600. So don't ask me why they go from feet to flight level 600. This is the way they speak about it. That's the terminology that's used. But for normal human beings, essentially flight level 600 is 60,000 feet. Okay. Above 60,000 feet, you get into Class E airspace. That is so high that, I mean, each country has their own designation of like what flight level that they claim in terms of authority over. Like if you fly above our territory at an altitude below this amount, you are violating our airspace and we're going to come after you. Now, one of the limitations of that is you can only designate really control over an airspace that you can control, meaning you have the ability to shoot down a threat. For example, I could be some say tribe somewhere in the Brazilian forest or something like that. This is our territory, blah, 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 right? And I can sit there and claim airspace up to, even 50,000 feet. And as a tribe who only has bows and arrows, I mean, it's like you're playing games, right? I mean, how are you going to claim airspace above 50,000 feet and you don't even have any aircraft? The only weapons you have are bows and arrows, which can only go up, I don't know, 100 feet. I don't know how high they can go, nowhere near 50,000, right? So it's kind of like a pointless declaration, right? If you have no ability to enforce this airspace, then really it's kind of, I mean, you can claim whatever you want to claim. It's your country, whatever you want to do. But again, it's kind of pointless because you don't have the ability to control it. But specifically in America, we have Class A airspace, 18,000 feet to 60,000 feet. What do you know? How high was this balloon flying? Interestingly enough, over 60,000 feet. Over 60,000 feet. That would put it in Class E airspace. And again, you would hear nothing of this from right-wing media. No interest in understanding the truth of what was really happening. Just pushing a narrative, right? Class E airspace is you're getting to a level now where you are now again a nation. It's your country. You can make whatever claims you want, and those claims would be only really limited by your technology, right? But if I were going to fly something over the United States, I would probably want to stay in Class E airspace or above. So I think that's why they were flying at that flight level. Now, from what I understand, that this is something that's done all the time. Now, there's this talk about it being done on the Trump. Now, if I'm in a left-wing media camp and I want to, promote my tribe over the other tribe, then I'm going to just say, well, Trump didn't do anything. But from what we're being told, Trump didn't even know. Now, as a Trump apologist, you would end there. That's how it works. You end, at whatever information is needed to make a point that supports your side, right? So, well, Trump didn't even know, right? But if you are a truth seeker like myself, you want to know the truth. You don't want to support a side, defend anyone, right? Then you say, okay, Trump didn't know, so you can't really blame him for like being weak. However, that he didn't know, I think is problematic. How can you be the greatest president ever, as many people say, and Chinese balloons are allowed to fly over the country without your knowledge. Now, some would make excuses about, oh, well, it's the other people, they didn't say anything. He's the leader, man, right? You can't be the CEO of Apple and just claim that, your engineers suck and your middle managers suck. The buck stops with you. If you're the president of the United States and you are running the country and you don't have good people around you that are even informing you about, threats like this, potential threats like this, that's a failure on your leadership, right? So fail on the left side of trying to just say, well, Trump was weak and he didn't do anything about it, right? Without informing their audience that, and we're hearing a lot of different information. So, maybe someone will come on and say, well, he did know. Well, until we find that out, I'm going to go based on the information we know right now. But those who will say he was weak and didn't do anything, but not inform their audience that he may not have actually known, dishonest, again, they're just trying to promote their tribe. But then those who will jump on this and say, well, he didn't even know. Biden knew and he chose to do nothing until he did something. Right. Anyway, the other thing is, in left-wing media, they'll talk about, the right wing, they're talking about, he was weak and we can't even handle shooting down a balloon, but we did shoot it down. I saw a majority report saying, we did shoot it down. But, okay. What is the point of shooting it down after it's completed its mission? I mean, and the thing is, this is how when you're trying to you're just trying to support a tribe, right? So the government says we don't want to shoot it down because of danger to citizens on the ground. Valid point, right? But again, people are only going as far as they need to push the narratives that they want to. So the government puts out an excuse of we don't want to hurt civilians, right? Which is logical, and it serves a left-wing perspective, and then you end there whoa, of course he didn't shoot down because they don't want to hurt people, right? And then later on, you're going to say, people say, oh, why we couldn't shoot it down? And I go, oh, but he did shoot it down. Okay. What is the relevance of shooting it down if you've allowed it to do the mission? The whole point of shooting it down will be to stop it from potentially intelligence gathering or posing a threat. You don't let the thing fly over the country, and then after it's done, then you go and shoot it down, and somehow that's somehow significant. It's kind of like, you're in a top secret military base, and somebody comes and they're out the front gate with a camera and they're filming, right? And you just let them do it because you don't want to fire shots at them and hit civilians across the street or something, right? So they're sitting there and videoing this thing, right? And then when they start to walk across the street, there's an opportunity where there's not, it's safe to take them out, and you take them out. But you don't know if they were live streaming, right? I mean, and then also, what if they could have, you don't know what the plan is. They could have escaped. How do you know this? It would have been perfectly set up where there's an opportunity to take them out. What if they finish their video, and then some helicopter swoops in, and Mission Impossible takes them out, and then they get to get away with the video. If the threat of them recording this base is so big, then you need to address it right away. You don't address it at your convenience. But that's not a way to address something that's serious, right? If this balloon is such a big threat, then you don't really get credit for shooting it after the fact, man. You don't think this thing had some kind of wireless capability to transmit data up to maybe a satellite or something like that? You don't think that whatever data it's capturing, they got all the data? Again, no interest in diving into the facts of the matter, right? If you're on a liberal media, you're just going to want to say, well, why don't we shut it down? You don't even think about wait a minute, but what was accomplished by shooting it down? I mean, the only thing we accomplished by shooting it down would be political, in terms of image. That we would shoot down this thing. We're not afraid to defend our territory or whatever. I mean, that kind of is hurt by the time that we took to do it. But so there's that. And another narrative coming from liberal media is that it's not a really big threat because they have satellites, right, that can do a better job or something like that. First of all, how, again, facts over feelings, right? That's a feeling that you feel this high tech satellites and whatever, and maybe you read something somewhere. How can you compare the capabilities of unknown satellites, right? Because we don't know what Chinese satellites are capable of, right? I mean, maybe our government does. That information is not privy to us, right? So we don't know what the capabilities of their satellites are. Only thing we know is what the capabilities that are publicly known of satellite technology in general. So we don't even know the full capability of our own satellites potentially, right? We don't know what they really are capable because I'm sure some of that stuff is top secret, right? So we don't even know that much less do we know what the satellites are capable of from China. So how can we make an assessment of what the balloon can do versus a satellite that we don't really know the capabilities of? Like, that doesn't make any sense. It's like there's an alien spacecraft called the PV-6000, right? And you're gonna say that why don't they use the PV-6000 versus driving a Lamborghini? I mean, the PV-6000 is clearly fast. How do you know? The PV-6000 could be some kind of a slow-moving vehicle that's designed for some kind of special thing that doesn't require speed, and maybe the car is actually faster. I mean, you would assume like, oh, alien technology, whatever, but you don't know. If you don't know the capability of the spacecraft, you're not familiar with the spacecraft. How can you make any comparison of what it can do versus something else? And then it's even worse. We also don't know what the balloon's capable of. We don't know what is in that balloon. They said it's this, again, clueless majority report. One of my subscribers disagrees, but he keeps saying stuff like, how many times have they said this story and they said the size of 3 school buses? And here he is, a news guy, a media guy, right, talking about the story, and he says, we don't have a sense of the size of this thing. Like 3 school buses, or I think it's 2 or 3. But I've heard multiple times the school bus analogy of how big it is. It's not a secret. It's something that's been repeated. How are you in the media reporting on a story and you don't even know a basic element? Like, if he's that sort of clueless about topics he's discussing, think about his other opinions on other topics. Not just calling him out. This is the kind of stuff you see all around in terms of independent media, and also corporate media as well. Um, so we don't know the capability of the Chinese satellites. We don't know the capability of this balloon, whatever it's on it, whatever payload it had, right? But we're gonna sit here and say, oh, the satellites are better. Okay. On top of not knowing the capability, so we don't have the authority to make an assessment of what's better and what can do what. Um, here, if we just stick with what we do know, um, it tells us enough to know that having this opinion is a bad idea. What do we know? We know that the way that, assuming that it's using some kind of optical technology where you have lenses that's focusing light, and then that beam of light is being processed by some kind of technology that converts it to some kind of a image that is suitable for human consumption, right? So lenses and light and the act of focusing. We know that when we're dealing with that type of technology, assuming, like, we don't know what technology they're using, right? Assuming it's that type of technology that they're using, we know that distance is everything, right? We know that the way that, let's look at the common device we use as a camera. It's always better to move closer to the subject, right, than to have to rely on a zoom, right? The highest resolution, the best image will be gotten from something that is close to the lens. The further away, the less details. You have a balloon that has some kind of an imaging equipment that is 60,000 feet versus a satellite, which is much, much further away. Clearly, it is easily sort of fathomable that the balloon might have something superior to the satellite, which would explain why they even use it in the first place instead of the satellite. Additionally, not only do we have the issue of distance in terms of focusing and the quality of the image, but you also have has to do with the concept of medium, right? The light that is, hitting this lens has to travel through something. It's not space. It's not traveling through a vacuum. It's traveling through some sort of medium, right? Medium meaning, for oversimplifying, some kind of substance, right? Some kind of, um, like in this case, it would be like air or atmosphere, right? So between think about when you try to look off into the distance when you're like in a city or something. The further away you look, things get more like unclear, right? Some days you see things more clear, other days not so much, because you have things, a lot of things, and the further away there's things in the air, and the further away you are from what you're looking at, there's potentially more things in the air, right? Like you have a certain amount of particles, dust, right, just floating around, right? As you increase distance, there's more dust, right? So now you're looking through more and more dust that's interfering with the light that's traveling, right? So if you have a satellite that's way up there, and you have a balloon that's much lower, um, there's several reasons with what we know, right? With just what we know about technology in terms of optical, um, there are several factors why that lower equipment would have an advantage. In fact, the military itself has dealt with this in many missions in the past where they have satellites. We have lots of great satellites. I'm sure they can capture lots of amazing things. But yet, we will have things like, what was it? We have the SR-71 Blackbird, I believe, was also used for surveillance. We also have the U-2 spy plane. So in other words, we have, um, relative to satellite, low flying aircraft, high flying compared to other aircraft, but low compared to satellites. Um, that we will fly over enemy territory. I think that the SR-71 Blackbird, I think, if I'm not mistaken, publicly available information, because obviously this stuff that's classified, I believe it can go to a ceiling of 70,000 feet. I think so. That takes it right up into Class E airspace, higher than this balloon. Don't quote me on this. If you're interested, you can go look it up yourself. I of as a kid, I was a major SR-71 Blackbird fan, but this that jet can fly about 70,000 feet, and the military thought that it was worth the risk of flying over enemy territory, having a pilot being by himself, um, for some reason, because they felt that there was something better that they could get by taking images from this aircraft versus from their satellites, right? And I'm thinking one of the reasons why they felt that way was because of things like weather, atmosphere, right? Particles in the air and the atmosphere. Um, so the idea that you have a liberal media to just totally dismiss it and say, well, they could just get the same thing from satellite. Again, you don't know anything about the capabilities of the balloon or their satellites, frankly. But what you do know, the information that we do know, does suggest that easily this balloon could be, um, um, certainly could have advantages over a satellite, right? So anyway, those are my thoughts on it. In terms of was it bad to let it fly over, I'll leave that to you guys to decide. I'm not here to shape your opinions or lead you one way or the other. Just here to give you the facts. Take with these facts what you will, right? You come to your own conclusions about what you think. Well, this is okay or not okay. But I just want you to at least base it on facts, not on feelings and these dueling narratives. People trying to get their clicks, right? Trying to do something different here, right? Imagine that. This baby channel. Debate me in the comment section below. Click on the like button, subscribe, smash that bell. Be well.